Did you know that arguably the three greatest Renaissance artists made artworks on the same subject? No, I'm not referring to some Madonna painting, it's the mythological story of Leda and the Swan. Leonardo da Vinci was the first to address this subject around 1504. Raphael reportedly made a copy of it, and 26 years later Michelangelo also painted this subject. The problem, however, is that the originals of Da Vinci and Michelangelo are lost, and Raphael only made a drawing. But we do have copies of their works and some original sketches by Da Vinci and Michelangelo. According to Greek mythology, Leda was a gorgeous princess of a Greek region known as Aetolia. She would become a queen after marrying the Spartan king Tyndareus. But if you were very beautiful in Greek mythology, there was a fair chance that the god of gods Zeus would take an interest in you. And that's exactly what happened. He disguised himself as a swan and pretended to flee from an eagle and sought protection in the arms of Leda. That night they got intimate, and all ashamed about what happened, Leda returned to her husband and made also love to him the same night. 9 months later, Leda had 4 children who hatched from 2 eggs. The names of the 4 children were Castor and Pollux, Clytemnestra and Helen of Troy, the lady at the center of the Trojan War. The mythological stories on who is the father of which children differ, but the most common version is that Pollux and Helen of Troy were fathered by Zeus, and the other 2 by Leda's husband. Leonardo da Vinci actually made 2 different compositions for Leda and the Swan, but unfortunately we only know them through copies by other artists. Here you can see a sketch by Da Vinci for the first version. Da Vinci made multiple sketches for a kneeling version of Leda with her 4 children, but it appears that he never created a final painting of this composition. However, a follower of him did, and his name was Giampietrino, who used the sketches of Da Vinci to create this work. We can see the typical Da Vinci background with a landscape and the 4 children of Leda, 2 emerging from the egg on the right side, and the other 2, including the one on her arm, came from the other egg. Leonardo started sketching this composition with a kneeling Leda around 1504. 4 years later, however, he did paint Leda and the Swan, this time with her standing instead of kneeling. We know the painting through several copies that have been made during the 16th century. This one, for example, was made by Il Sodoma 2 years after the original by Da Vinci. Notice that it combines the 2 different moments from Leda's story, the meeting with the swan and the birth of her children. In Il Sodoma's version there are only 2 children, but the other copies show all 4 children. Notice how Leda's contrapposto position shows both the physical attraction to the swan and the care over the children. The question of the history of the original work by Da Vinci is a mystery. The last extensive description of it comes from 1625, when it was in the palace of Fontainebleau, when the Italian scholar Cassiano dal Pozzo described it as follows: a standing figure of Leda, almost entirely naked, with a swan at her and 2 eggs, from whose broken shells come forth 4 babies. This work, although somewhat dry in style, is exquisitely finished, especially in the woman's breast, and for the rest of the landscape and the plant life are rendered with the greatest diligence. Unfortunately, the picture is in a bad state, because it's done on 3 long panels which have split apart and broken off certain amount of paint. The painting still remained on the inventory list of the Palace of Fontainebleau until 1692, but after that no further mentions or whereabouts of Da Vinci's painting are known. Given the poor state of the painting, according to Dal Pozzo, it may have been discarded eventually, but that's just me guessing. Maybe it's somewhere still stored in a basement or attic, or overpainted by some lesser artist. So Leonardo's painting of Leda and the Swan is missing. But what has happened to the original painting of Michelangelo? Here we can see a copy of it. but it has been damaged quite a bit over time and misses quite some details. This is actually a more detailed engraving of the painting by Cornelis Bos, even though it misses the color. Michelangelo had promised the powerful Alfonso d'Este, Duke of Ferrara, to paint him a picture which would be about Leda and the Swan. When Michelangelo had finished the painting, the Duke sent a special messenger to pick it up. This messenger, however, described the painting as nothing much, right in Michelangelo's face. Proud as Michelangelo was, he got enraged, and he gave the painting and most sketches instead to one of his apprentices, Antonio Mini, the same man who said for this surviving study that Michelangelo drew with red pencil for the painting of Leda and the Swan. It may sound strange that he used a male as the model for Leda, but this was actually common practice for Michelangelo. In the smaller sketch on the left, you can see how he adapts his first sketch by adding long lashes and adjusting the nose, making it already look more feminine. Anyway, the finished painting and the other sketches ended up in his pupil's hands, probably with the idea that he could sell them. But a year later the pupil moved to France and brought the painting, and 2 years later he would die. We know that at his death the painting was still in his possession, but what happened after that is a subject of some debate. The most common story is that the painting ended up in the collection of King Francis I and that it was later destroyed there because it was considered an indecent work. To put it differently, there is some evidence that the painting ended up in Versailles through descriptions and copies, but at some time in the 17th century the trail runs cold and we can only guess what exactly happened to it. So two of the best artists ever painted the subject of Leda and the Swan, but both of their works have gone missing in France. Chances are small that either piece will be found, but stranger things have happened in art history. I hope you enjoyed this art mystery and feel free to share your own theories on what may have happened to either of the paintings in the comment section down below. Finally, please hit that thumbs up button to support the channel, subscribe if you have not done so, and hit the notification bell to be alerted when new videos are released. Thanks for watching.